We're going to go to our first speaker here, and he's our first in-person speaker. We have two here. We got a couple in Texas, and the rest will be virtual. So thank you guys for being here with us. We do encourage you to visit the website and check out the speakers if you want to learn more about who they are and the work that they do. So James Guzman is somebody that I've become acquainted with in the last couple years as I've been in Mexico. He's been in Mexico longer than myself, and he's just a couple hours away from here and been doing really good work helping people who are trying to transition to Mexico in a number of different ways. He's also somebody that understands Agorism and getting out of the systems and trying to build better systems. So we're going to go to James Guzman. Please give him a round of applause.
All right, guys, let me get my screen set up here. Okay. Does that work? I can't see anything. All right. Anyways, well, maybe I'll move this. You can't see me. There we go. Okay. Well, first of all, I'm very honored that I've been asked to speak here. I mean, let's give it up for John and Derek. They're really throwing a great event. I think everybody's having a great time. Now, last night Derek talked about agorism, John just talked about agorism, but I thought maybe I'd talk about it even more and explain, because there's probably a lot of people that don't know what that means and how does that relate to parallel systems. So first of all, my name is James Guzman. I live in San Miguel de Allende. We got some San Miguel de Allende people in here. Give it up. Hey, make some noise. All right. And so I've been living there for 8 years. I've been living in Mexico for 10. And I have a blog, a podcast, do videos basically about exploring the topics of autonomous income and expatriation, saving money on taxes, just basically freedom, how to bring freedom into your own life. And on borderlessblog.com, Borderless Podcast. And we also have a freedom cell in San Miguel de Allende that I started not too long ago, less than a year ago, and it has 175 people in there. Hopefully we get to over 200 pretty soon, so that's not bad. The town is not very big, so we're getting somewhere. And so anyway, today I wanted to start by introducing the ideas of agorism as they have, but maybe we'll get a little bit more in depth quickly. Also how it goes with parallel structures for people that are not familiar with the terms, and how we can practically use that as a strategy to survive and thrive in the coming years, despite what the so-called global elites have planned for us during the actual Great Reset, and we're going to do something different here at the Greater Reset. So first of all, I think, to just start from the basics, I would assume that everybody here, they have liberated their mind from the mass hysteria and the things that are going on right outside, and that also they're looking for more of a society that is based on voluntary actions. Is there anybody that doesn't describe? No, I don't think so. Okay, good, because that's going to be the basis of pretty much everything. We can disagree on all kinds of different topics and all that, but I think that throughout this whole conference, that's basically what we're talking about, and we can go from there. So those are the core principles that we're going to discuss. Maybe a lot of people have been woken up, so to say, or shaken up by this COVID, whatever you want to call it, thing that's been going on, the hysteria. And it's made it impossible to ignore kind of a lot of the totalitarian tendencies in the societies that we're living in, right? But this is something that most people, I think, that are speaking, certainly Derek and John, have been talking about for a long time, as well as I have. And I think it's just made it in your face, unavoidable. So we're going to talk about, and what agorism is about is basically, how do we get to this point? And, a lot of us that maybe have seen this in the past are seeing it going even further. This is just one symptom of what we've seen for a long time. And, in the future, that we'd see a lot of us see economic crisis, supply disruptions, rising energy costs, even war and other things like that, that probably we want to avoid, right? So how can we practically do that? Instead of dwelling on any type of dystopia or things like that that they have set up for us, how about we take our time and our energy, instead of just dwelling on whatever negative things that they're doing, how about we can think about how we can make a positive future for ourselves. So one of those strategies is called agorism. All right. So agorism, as has been talked about by Derek last night, is a philosophy that was brought up by a guy named Samuel Edward Konkin III, and he was a libertarian thinker. The word comes from the word agora. The agora was the word for the marketplace, the center place of people getting together in ancient Greece, as you can see on the slide. For a lot of people that live in Mexico or in the United States, I mean, that does kind of look familiar, right? It looks like a market, a farmer's market, something like that. So that's kind of the excuse me. That's kind of the idea, is a marketplace where people can get together and freely exchange. It's kind of an archetypal tool that where person-to-person markets to illustrate how you can undermine the system at large using black and gray markets. This activity is doing it in practice is called counter-economics. Counter-economics is the study and or practice of all peaceful human action which is forbidden by the state. All right. So there is an agorist class theory. Like I said, I'm going to get into it a little bit more than they did. It might be a little academic, but let's talk about what does it actually mean? What are we talking about? So in normal libertarian theory, you have two classes. You have people that are net payers into the state and net takers. Okay? And Konkin did not see it so cut and dry, because a lot of the, obviously, the corporation, it's a giant corporate system at large. Most of the corporations benefit from state privileges, which aren't so easily recognizable for a lot of people. And I think that in the last 2 years, that's become very obvious. And so actually, the idea of agorism has grown a lot, and a lot of these type of ideas have, because you could see how a lot of the so-called free market corporations are going lockstep in with these government mandates, sometimes even overdoing what the government says. So what's going on here? Well, Konkin said that this is because you're not understanding the large, the status system at large, and that now he's dead. He's been dead for a while, but if you recognize it now, we're at much a later stage of this status system that we live under, and which causes these large corporations that rely on the state for their very existence, and they operate as de facto government agencies. Central bank bailouts, compromised regulatory enforcement, and complicated tax structures are only some of the factors that make it impossible to separate those two classes so easily. So for this reason, Konkin sought to create a new, more practical class theory that could be used for strategic purposes. All right? Okay, and so this is the agorist class theory. You have 5, okay? Number 1 would be the white markets, which is basically what most people know, right? So this is these businesses that are considered legal by the state and which are regulated and taxed. So just 100% on board with everything: banks, large grocery stores, department stores, all large corporations, usually doing business in nothing but fiat currency, obviously. These are the white markets. Then you have what's called gray markets. Gray markets are businesses, services that are legal but operate outside the state's supervision, usually not taxable or not completely taxable, and they consist of untaxed and unregulated goods and services. So I've written some things on here: farmers markets, sometimes freelancers, homeschooling, neighborhood watch, independent media, independent medical practitioners, something that I think a lot of people have been thinking about lately. Then you have black markets. Black markets are markets that are illegal by the state, but engage in, no, I'm sorry, that's not right. But they're illegal by the state, but are voluntary. So, these, again, prostitution, 3D printed guns, Silk Road smuggling, things like that, things that are done on a voluntary basis. So from a voluntary perspective, they wouldn't consider them to be illegal, immoral, but they are completely banned from the state. You're not supposed to do that. Then you have red markets, which are illegal by the state, but engage in violence and coercion, okay? Or from the agrist theory, they would be immoral, right? So human trafficking, assassination, extortion. Then you have pink markets, which is the government basically involved in all the things that, pretty much everything in agrist theory that the government does is involuntary. So it's kind of weird, the pink and red, but I think you get the point. So here is a quote from what they call him SEK3. As more people reject the state's specifications, the countereconomy grows both vertically and horizontally. Horizontally involves more and more people who turn more and more of their activities toward the counter-economic. Vertically, it means new structures, business and services grow, specifically to serve the counter-economy. So now we move on to a little bit further into it, which is the horizontal and vertical, how this incorporates into horizontal and vertical structures. I'm not sure who put this together. I think Derek or somebody he worked with had something to do with it, but I found it on the internet. And so I think it kind of shows you the idea that, the idea is that as you build, so at the bottom you start with just basic person-to-person things, even thinking about how you can do things, backyard gardens. And then as you have more people engaging in it, then they can help each other. You can build more complicated structures, like at the top you see independent media, you see counter-economic markets, decentralized technology that can then support all the people that are participating in these markets. So that's kind of the idea, is that it would start at the bottom. The more people you have, it would kind of grow into its own parallel structure, which is what we're going to talk about. This incorporates into the idea of parallel structures, which is another term, but it is coined by a guy named Václav Havel. And you see, although SEK3 puts his own labels on these terms, this strategy or tactic is not new. In fact, black and gray markets are what have allowed for millions of people to survive under many totalitarian regimes. One notable example is what is labeled the second economy during the Soviet Union, which has been documented extensively as the means to which a large portion of the population was able to survive under otherwise unlivable circumstances, and which contributed greatly to the demise of the entire Soviet regime. So this was kind of the idea of Konkin as well, is not just a way to survive, but that so many people would participate that it would kind of undermine and in the end collapse the authoritarian system. But whether that happens or not, the point is that it can help you survive through it. The second economy is something that begins to flourish the more the totalitarian society shifts. The participants do not need to be aware of the philosophical foundation of voluntary transactions. They participate for sheer survival. I'll just throw that up there. In the same train of thought, we have what is called parallel structures, which is defined as any form of organization, business, institution, technology, or creative pursuit that exists physically within a totalitarian society, yet morally outside of it. Václav Havel was a political dissident under the communist rule of Czechoslovakia. He eventually became the president, people know him, and coined the term in the book The Power of the Powerless, where he wrote about the absurd nature of living under the totalitarian Soviet regime. And he wrote, "We never decided to become dissidents. We have never been transformed into them. We have been transformed into them. Without quite knowing how, sometimes we have ended up in prison and did certain things that we felt we ought to do and that seemed to us decent to do. Nothing more, nothing less. As you can see, during those circumstances, much of the population naturally must participate in the second economy and build parallel structures." He also wrote, "When parallel structures are formed, a second society or culture can spontaneously form and function as an enclave of freedom and sanity in a totalitarian world." He noted that in Soviet Union, parallel structures or the second economy, was actually more effective at combating totalitarianism than political action. So I think that's kind of the point of agorism, is that, you're not going out voting. I mean, you can do some, local activism and things like that, but, instead of concentrating on that, you concentrate on how you can build, agorist market parallel structure within people that are on the same page with you. Okay. Here's another quote. What else are parallel structures than an area where a different life can be lived, a life that is in harmony with its own aims, and which in turn structures itself in harmony with those aims? What else are those initial attempts at social self-organization than the efforts of a certain part of society to rid itself of the self-sustaining aspects of totalitarianism and thus to extricate itself rapidly from its involvement in the totalitarian system? I took this, maybe a lot of people are familiar with this image there. It's from a YouTube video. It's a YouTube channel called Actor School. Credit to that. Very good YouTube channel. All right, so now that we understand the strategy of agorism and building parallel structures, I want to talk more about how you can put them in practice. I want to make sure that it's understood that even Konkin recognized that there are degrees which people are going to participate in the, whether it's white and black and gray markets. We wouldn't expect everybody to immediately be working 100% outside the system. And it's understandable, for instance, that someone is not going to run out and quit their job if they have nothing to fall back on because they work for one of these quasi-government corporations. And it is advisable, however, to try, at the very least, to create other streams of income, side hustles or skills that you can practice outside the system that you can fall back on and perhaps will eventually replace your salary, and that you can replace your salary with. I will also add that there are obviously times when it's possible to not deal with to not avoid dealing with white market businesses. There are instances where you have to have a bank account, for instance, or insurance. It will be necessary, and there's no other options outside the system. Also, if you do have money that is unavoidably inside the system, another option, which this is not Konkin's idea, but something I talk about, is that sometimes you can engage in the same, if you have money that's in the system, you're making it in, unavoidably in a banking system, you can't, what you want to do is avoid paying as much tax as possible. So there's a lot of different tax strategies you can do to pay as less as possible in a legal way. At this point, I wanted to brainstorm with you guys and think about some side hustles, other things that people can do and people are already doing to create or participate in parallel structures. I've already put some up there. So we talked before about farmers markets, flea markets, homeschooling groups, neighborhood watch, independent medical practitioner. So I don't know if some people want to just throw some things that they're doing out there to give people some ideas about what they can do. Yeah. Okay. All right. So that basically independent medical practitioner trying to help people detox if they have had bad effects from vaccine. Anybody else doing anything? Co-ops, okay, so any type of co-op. Yeah, that's more of a structure, but yeah, you can do cooperatives, but yeah, so anything else? There you go. Yeah, that's perfect. So a lot of different skills. Oh, I'm out of the video here. A lot of skills that you can have. So he repairs bicycles, repair cars, help people with their vegetable gardens, or help people do a lot of things. So yeah, so I think that you get the idea of that. And then, the idea is that once you have those people on the beginning kind of vertical structure, other people could support them with other things like helping them exchange cryptocurrencies or starting a precious metals trading group in town, all things like this. All right, so we're all here now to work together on this type, so I hope that you will take the time to think about how you can help and network with others to make it happen. That's what the Greater Reset is all about, right? That's why we're here. And Freedom Cells is all about. So once we have enough people with an established enough network of people participating, we can form support groups and intentional communities that will be able to survive and thrive no matter what happens during these times of economic crisis, which we may be seeing in the near future, or authoritarianism, which we seem to be living through presently. That's all I've got on the basics of agorism. And I did want to end on just a picture of Ross Ulbricht because I didn't think it was right. I hope that somebody could mention Ross Ulbricht, who basically sacrificed himself for these types of ideas and is in jail for maybe his life. So that's agorism in a nutshell, and I hope everybody can understand that now. Thank you.
Yeah, give a big round of applause for James.
In June 2020, the World Economic Forum launched their initiative, the Great Reset, an attempt to centralize and manage the direction of the planet and its resources.
The people of the world immediately exposed and took action against this power grab.
In January 2021, the Freedom Cell Network launched the Greater Reset Activation, a solutions-focused event offering an alternative to the Great Reset.
Now we are returning with the Greater Reset 3, Integration, a 5-day hybrid event where revolutionary speakers and organizations focus on integrating the solutions to real-world problems.
The Greater Reset 3 will focus on activating 5 themes.
January 26th, liberate your mind, body, and soul.
January 27th, Agorism and Parallel Networks.
January 28th, permaculture and food independence.
January 29th, take back our tech.
And January 30th, building free and conscious communities.
Now, more than ever, it is of vital importance that the free hearts and minds of the world rally together to build parallel structures so we may be liberated from the tyranny of the Great Reset.
Join us from January 26th to the 30th, 2022, as we gather online in Central Texas and Morelia, Mexico, as well as local activation hubs worldwide.
Join us as we lay the foundation for the next stage of a free humanity.
Join us for the Greater Reset 3, Integration.
View the full speakers list, find your local activation hub, or start your own at thegreaterreset.org.